So let me tell you a story. It's about a man who had it all, a life of luxury in Paris, a family, a successful career, and then just walked away from it. Traded it all for a shack in the middle of the South Pacific. This is the story of Paul Gauguin, and it's a wild ride into savage genius and the brutal, brutal price of creating something that lasts forever.
I mean, really think about that for a second. Why would anyone do that? This is the one question that hangs over everything Paul Gauguin ever did. It drove him from the very top of society to the absolute edge of the world, and it's the mystery we are going to try and unravel right now.
All right, so before he became this legend, this controversial figure, there was just the man. And this man, by pretty much every measure, was living a life that most people could only dream of.
Picture it. Paris in the 1870s. The stock exchange is a madhouse of shouting and chaos. And right there, in the middle of it all, is Paul Gauguin. But here's the twist. He's not some starving artist. No, he's a sharp, successful stockbroker, and he's making a fortune. He's got the reputation, the money, he's living the dream.
And it wasn't just about the money. He had a wife, met Sophie Gad, and a nice, comfortable home. If you were to look at his life from the outside, you'd see a perfect picture of success and respectability. Absolutely flawless.
If you want to understand the true weight of the life he had, it all comes down to one single number. 5. He had 5 children. That's 5 futures that depended on him. 5 huge responsibilities. You have to remember that number, because that is everything he was about to set on fire.
An artist uncaged, because you see underneath that perfect, respectable surface, something else was stirring. A passion that was getting louder and louder, an artist that was rattling the bars of a cage made of money and expectations.
Yeah, because Gauguin was living a double life. Once the stock market closed, he'd go home and become someone else. He was this passionate art collector, and he was starting to paint himself, getting really into this radical new style called Impressionism. This wasn't just some weekend hobby, you know? It was becoming an obsession, growing in the shadows of his corporate job.
And then, boom. In just a couple of short years, the whole thing fell apart. In 1882, the stock market crashed, and his job just vanished. He tried to start over, dragged his whole family to Copenhagen to be a salesman, but he failed at that too. So by 1885, he made a choice. He abandoned his wife and their 5 kids and went back to Paris with one single, ruthless goal: to paint.
This new life as an artist would lead him straight into one of the most intense, most famous, and most destructive friendships in the history of art. It was a brotherhood forged in fire, and, well, it was always going to end in flames.
For 2 incredibly tense months, Gauguin lived and painted with Vincent van Gogh. But they were total opposites: oil and water. Gauguin wanted to paint ideas, moods, things from his imagination. Van Gogh, on the other hand, was all raw emotion. He painted the energy he felt, the reality that was vibrating right in front of his eyes. There was just no way their 2 worlds could exist in one place for long.
And oh boy, did they collide. That famous yellow house in Arles, it was supposed to be an artist's paradise. Instead, it became a total pressure cooker. We're talking constant arguments, jealousy. It was basically psychological warfare. The letters they wrote showed 2 geniuses just pushing each other right to the edge.
Which, of course, brings us to that night, the one incident that has been wrapped in mystery and speculation for more than 100 years.
Okay, so 2 main stories came out of that night's chaos. The official story, the one you've probably heard, is that after a huge fight, Gauguin left and a devastated Van Gogh cut off his own ear. But there's another, much darker theory. It whispers that Gauguin, who is actually a pretty good fencer, sliced Van Gogh's ear with his sword during the argument, and the 2 of them made a pact to never speak of it. Well, probably never know the real truth.
So after that complete disaster, Gauguin needed to escape. And not just from Van Gogh, but from, well, everything. He was sick of European civilization and started chasing this idea of a perfect, untouched paradise that might not have even existed.
In 1891, he did it. He got on a ship, turned his back on the entire continent of Europe, and sailed for French Polynesia. He said he was escaping the filth of civilization. He was looking for something pure, something authentic, a primitive life he was convinced would save him.
Except, the paradise he was dreaming of wasn't there. When he got to Tahiti, he found it had already been colonized. The pure world he was looking for was just a fantasy. But that didn't stop him. He just pushed farther out, traveling to the super remote Marquesas Islands, still chasing that ghost.
The price of genius, because it was right here, at the edge of the world, totally isolated and disappointed, that Gauguin's art finally found its voice. But this massive breakthrough came at a really high and frankly disturbing personal price. See, since reality had let him down, he just decided to invent his own. He came up with his brand new style called cloisonnism. The easiest way to think about it is like stained glass. You have these big, flat areas of pure, bold color, with heavy black lines around them. It was his way of rebelling against painting just what he saw. He started painting what he felt, the invisible world of symbols and dreams.
And the paintings he made during this time, they're the ones that made him a legend. They just explode with these incredible, almost unreal colors. The Polynesian women he painted stare out at you with these mysterious, powerful expressions. Even the titles are like little riddles, hinting at a whole world of spirits and myths that we can't quite see.
But we have to be honest here and talk about the darker truth behind these beautiful paintings. His paradise was actually a place of extreme loneliness. He took a young Tahitian partner, Pauo Aura, who was likely just a teenager, and had a son with her, and all the while he was suffering terribly from syphilis.
So here we have Gauguin in his final years, broke, sick, and almost completely unknown. He was in a race against time, trying to get his ultimate vision down on canvas and create a legacy that he himself would never get to see.
The end of his life is such a tragic contradiction. In 1897, while he's creating what many consider his greatest masterpiece, his personal life is just in ruins. He dies in 1903, only 54 years old, just destroyed by illness and heartbreak. And the craziest part? He died with no idea that his work was about to spark a revolution in the art world.
He gave that final, massive painting this title. It's more than a title, though. It's his entire life. His search, his pain, his genius, all poured into one huge, unanswerable question. A question he abandoned literally everything to ask, and a question he ultimately leaves for us to think about.